I never imagined the brass key would feel heavier in my palm than the entire house behind it. It was the key to the first property I had ever bought entirely on my own, every down payment, every inspection, every late-night negotiation, every line of the mortgage agreement traced back to me. Not us. Me. And still, the moment I pushed the front door open, the first sound that greeted me wasn't the soft echo of my footsteps in a new beginning. It was my husband, Daniel, saying, "We need to talk before you get too excited." I turned. He wasn't smiling. That alone put a cold weight in my stomach. "What's wrong?" I asked. He rubbed the back of his neck the way he always did before confessing something he knew I wouldn't like. "It's about the house. About living arrangements." My fingers froze around the brass key. "Daniel, what arrangements?" He exhaled sharply. "Look, I didn't want to bring it up until you actually got the place, because I didn't want to ruin the moment. But now that you have it, well, it's time." I waited. And in that split second of silence, something inside me sensed the coming fracture, the one you feel before a glass slips out of your hand. "Melissa and Jacob are moving in," he said. He didn't need to clarify. I knew exactly who he meant. His ex-wife. Her 10-year-old son. The two people he avoided mentioning unless absolutely necessary. I blinked slowly. "I'm sorry, what?" "It's temporary," he rushed on. "She's struggling, you know that. She got evicted, and Jacob needs stability right now. I already told her we'd take them in." I stared at him. "You already told her?" "Before you told me." "Please don't make this dramatic," he said, voice tightening. "This is the decent thing to do. You're always preaching about compassion, well, here's your chance to show it." I felt my jaw clench. Compassion is not the same thing as letting your ex-wife live in a house I paid for without even consulting me. Daniel sighed as if I were the burden in the room. "Look, I get that you're territorial. But Melissa really needs this. And Jacob is basically family." "He's your family," I corrected quietly. "Not mine." Daniel's eyes hardened. "They're moving in. Deal with it." The sentence cracked across the air like a whip. For a moment, I stood completely still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't even let him see whatever emotion was clawing at my chest: anger, disbelief, maybe even a hint of humiliation. Instead, I reached into my pocket, slid out the folded paperwork I'd kept with me, and gently placed it on the marble entryway table. "What's that?" he asked. "The purchase and occupancy contract," I said, my voice steady. "Since you just volunteered a house you don't own, you might want to read who legally controls who lives here." He opened his mouth to reply, but I was already walking deeper into the house, running my fingers along the clean white walls, memorizing every empty, perfect room. Before continuing with the story, thank you for coming here. For more stories, please subscribe to the channel. And please mention where you listened to it in the comments. Thank you. Because something told me they wouldn't stay empty for long. But more importantly, something else told me Daniel had no idea what line he had just crossed. And I had no intention of letting him walk back over it unscathed. The brass key weighed warm in my hand as I closed the door behind me. A reminder. This house was mine. But soon enough, the truth would be too. Daniel didn't bring up the contract again that night. In fact, he avoided the subject entirely, acting as if the confrontation in the foyer had dissolved into thin air. But the silence around him didn't feel like peace. It felt like plotting. I noticed it in the way he checked his phone too often. The way he angled the screen away from me. The way he let out tight, frustrated sighs when he thought I wasn't looking. He wasn't reconsidering anything, he was coordinating. By morning, the truth was confirmed. I was half asleep, padding toward the kitchen for coffee, when I saw a text flash across his screen as he sat at the counter. "Melissa, when should we bring our things?" The boy is excited. So they'd already decided. Already scheduled. already moved on from the idea that I might have a say. I walked past him without a word and took my mug from the cabinet, a chipped ceramic one I'd had since my first apartment in Chicago. A tiny imperfection on the handle formed a barely visible crescent. The mug had survived moves, renovations, even a flood. It became my morning ritual, my little reminder that strength doesn't come from being unbroken, it comes from staying functional despite the cracks. I filled it with coffee and leaned against the counter. "When are they arriving?" I asked calmly. Daniel stiffened. "You saw the message." "Yes. They'll be here around 2. Just until Melissa gets back on her feet." "And how long is that?" I raised a brow. "A week, a month? A year?" "Don't do that," he snapped. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "No," I said softly. "I'm making it accurate." He glared, but before he could escalate, his phone buzzed again, this time with a call. He stood and walked into the living room. While he paced, lowering his voice, I went to my office and pulled out the documents he clearly assumed had no teeth: the purchase agreement, the occupancy rights, and, most critical, the homeowners association bylaws. I'd reviewed them several times while buying, and with every page I turned now, I felt that same quiet, controlled power I always felt before closing a major deal. There it was. Clause 14b, Primary Owner Occupancy Conditions. No extended stay occupants beyond 14 consecutive days without explicit written consent from the deeded homeowner. Violations are subject to HOA intervention. It wasn't just a clause. It was leverage. And leverage was something Daniel had forgotten I was very, very good at using. By noon, I heard the first car outside. A silver SUV. Melissa stepped out wearing oversized sunglasses and an expression that was trying, unsuccessfully, to hide satisfaction. Her son, Jacob, trailed behind her with a backpack bigger than he was. Daniel rushed out like a loyal concierge. He hugged Melissa. Actually hugged her. Longer than friendly. Too familiar. The sight nearly made me laugh, not because it hurt, but because it exposed something. Daniel wasn't being noble. He was being nostalgic. He wanted to play savior. To be needed. To be relevant to someone who once adored him. And he wanted to do it using my house. I stepped onto the porch with a polite smile. "Welcome." Melissa looked me up and down. "We really appreciate this." "Truly." Her tone suggested the opposite. As if she were stepping into her rightful place. Jacob waved shyly. I waved back. He wasn't the problem. "Let's get you settled," Daniel said. I put their things in the guest room. "You what?" I asked sharply. "I moved some of your boxes out," he said. There wasn't space. I stared at him. "Those boxes contain paperwork for my company." "It's just temporary," he repeated, shrugging. "You can sort it out later." I don't know what expression crossed my face, but Daniel flinched. "Good." Melissa wandered inside, and within 5 minutes, she was opening cabinets, rearranging items, and acting as though she had every right to explore. Jackets were draped over chairs, shoes were kicked off in the hallway, and Jacob's toys were already scattered across the living room floor. My home, my sanctuary, was being colonized in real time. "Daniel," I said quietly, "we need to talk. Now." He followed me to the study, irritation radiating off him. "For the love of God, can you not ruin this? They just got here." "No," I said. "You ruined this when you invited your ex-wife into my home without my permission." He rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting." I walked to the desk, lifted the documents, and placed them in front of him. Clause 14b. He blinked. "What?" "You didn't read the occupancy limits," I said. "This neighborhood has very strict HOA regulations." He snatched the papers. "This can't be real." "It's very real," I said. "And enforceable." He skimmed the text, and I watched the veins in his neck tighten. So what? He muttered. You'd seriously threaten to get the HOA involved to kick out a 10-year-old? I would protect my home, I corrected. And I would enforce boundaries you refuse to respect. He slammed the papers down. You're unbelievable. No, I said calmly. Just prepared. Behind him, Melissa appeared in the doorway, arms folded. Am I interrupting? Daniel whirled around. It's nothing. She's just being dramatic. I smiled, slow and controlled. Don't worry, Melissa. I'll make sure everything is handled properly. Legally, of course. Her expression flickered. Good. Let them both feel the shift. Because from this moment forward, every step they took in my house would be on borrowed ground. Bound by a clause they didn't know existed. And I intended to use it. The first 3 days felt like a slow leak, annoying at first, then steadily flooding everything I'd built. Melissa treated the house like a communal lodge, drifting from room to room in fuzzy socks, opening drawers that weren't hers, adjusting decor she didn't buy. Every morning, she brewed her special herbal tea using my kettle, leaving the kitchen smelling like mint and entitlement. And every evening, she monopolized the living room with loud true crime shows while Daniel sat beside her, too close, too comfortable, acting like this was their shared home, not mine. I kept track of everything. Not because I'm petty, but because boundaries matter, and violations accumulate like interest. Meanwhile, Jacob grew louder, messier, and surprisingly territorial. He spread his things across the entire downstairs area, and every time I stepped around a pile of blocks or nearly tripped over an abandoned soccer cleat, I reminded myself, he's a child. He learns what the adults model. And the adults were modeling disrespect. On the 4th morning, I woke to muffled voices in the kitchen. At first, I thought Melissa was on the phone. Then I recognized Daniel's low tone, defensive, hushed. I stayed in the hallway, listening. She's being impossible, Daniel whispered. Melissa scoffed. She's not impossible. She's threatened. Threatened by what? By us, she said with a soft, smug laugh. We have history. You and I know how to function as a family. She's rigid. Everything is about control for her. I'm just saying, maybe this arrangement is good for you. It puts things in perspective. Daniel didn't disagree. He didn't defend me. He didn't say a single word in my favor. Instead, he changed the subject, cowardly, evasive, like a teenager caught cheating but unwilling to confess. I stepped into the kitchen just as silence fell. Good morning, I said. Melissa shot me a bright smile. Coffee? Oh, Daniel said we should use the big mug for me. The cute chipped one. The mug. My mug. My chipped ceramic survivor. She'd claimed it like a trophy. No, I said calmly. That one's mine. Her smile faltered. Daniel muttered, it's just a mug, Claire. It's my mug, I corrected. In my home. The air tightened. Jacob wandered in, rubbing his eyes, and Melissa immediately launched into motherly mode, sweeping him close as though shielding him from my supposed cruelty. It's okay, sweetheart, she said dramatically. Some people get anxious when their things are touched. I stared at her, but she avoided my eyes. Later that day, while Daniel and Melissa laughed at something on her phone in the living room, I stepped outside onto the porch. I needed clarity. Air. Distance. But what I got was something far more valuable. A man in a navy jacket approached with a clipboard. Morning. I'm Leo Jensen, he said. HOA Compliance Officer. I'm checking in with all new homeowners to review occupancy guidelines and ensure everything's up to date for our quarterly records. I almost smiled. Quarterly records. Perfect timing. Come in, I said politely. I have the paperwork ready. He stepped inside, and as he inspected documents, he noticed the pile of shoes and bags by the entrance. Are these yours? He asked casually. Before I could answer, Jacob raced down the hall shouting, "Mom! Where's my tablet?" Melissa emerged from the living room, hair tied back, wearing one of Daniel's old college hoodies. The scene was damning on its own. Leo's brows lifted. "Extended family staying with you?" I kept my tone light, non-committal. "They're here temporarily." He nodded slowly. "Well, just a reminder, per Clause 14b, long-term stays require written approval from the deeded homeowner and an amendment filed with the HOA. We enforce it strictly. Even family needs proper documentation." Melissa stiffened. Daniel appeared behind her, eyes widening when he saw the official badge. "We'll handle it," I said with a polite smile. "Thank you for stopping by." After he left, the house simmered. Daniel rounded on me. "Why didn't you tell me he was coming?" "I didn't know," I replied. "He's just doing his job." Melissa crossed her arms. He looked right at me. "It feels unwelcoming." "I wonder why," I said. Daniel stepped closer. "Don't do this. Don't weaponize the HOA." "You already weaponized me," I said quietly. "You made decisions in my home without me. Now we're dealing with consequences." Melissa jumped in. "Maybe we should call someone, get clarification about how long we can stay without, all that paperwork." "Oh, you'll need clarification," I said. "Because compliance officers don't visit twice. Their next step is enforcement." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "if anyone exceeds the permitted stay without my written approval, they receive a formal notice, and you know how the process goes from there." Melissa paled. "A notice? As in an eviction notice?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The message was received. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. That evening, while they sat in uncomfortable silence, I did something subtle, something strategic. I placed the chipped mug on the highest, closed shelf in the kitchen. Out of reach. Out of view. Out of circulation. A quiet reminder that I protect what's mine. Starting small. Building momentum. And when Daniel snapped later, "You're being childish," I simply smiled. Because I wasn't being childish. I was setting the first trap. On the 7th day, the energy in the house shifted from irritation to tension, thick, buzzing, tangible. Everyone felt it. Even Jacob, who had grown quieter, watching the adults like someone sensing an incoming storm. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. And I was steering it. That morning, after Daniel left for work, I took a slow walk through my home. Melissa's jacket draped over a dining chair. Her slippers left in the hallway. Her makeup bag open on the bathroom counter. Jacob's toys scattered across the living room like confetti. They had settled in fully. Emotionally. Psychologically. Strategically. That's when I opened the guest room door. Melissa's suitcase wasn't on the floor anymore. It was unpacked. Drawer filled. Closet filled. Shoes lined neatly in a row. Not temporary living. Claiming territory. I stood there, absorbing the sight. Then I noticed something else, something subtle. On the nightstand was a photo of Melissa and Daniel from years ago. College-aged. Smiling at a lake. A memory resurrected in my house. That, more than the clothes, more than the mess, told me everything. Melissa wasn't here because she was struggling. She was here because she saw an opening, and took it. A chance to rebuild what she'd lost. A chance to pull Daniel back under her influence. A chance to wedge me out using sympathy, nostalgia, and chaos. But she miscalculated one thing. I don't step aside. I don't get intimidated. And I don't lose my home. When I walked back downstairs, Melissa stood in the kitchen scrambling eggs like she owned the stove. She glanced at me, then turned back to the pan without a word. Bold. "Good morning," I said evenly. "Morning," she replied curtly. I hope you don't mind, I used the last of your spinach. I do mind, I said. She froze mid-stir. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. Jacob looked up from the couch. I'll get it. No, I said quickly. Let me. My steps were calm but my pulse sharpened, because I already knew who it was. Leo, the HOA compliance officer, stood on the porch holding a sealed document. Ms. Reynolds, he said formally. As part of our follow-up, I need you to sign confirmation that the extended stay occupants either have your documented approval or have vacated, per regulations. Behind me, Melissa stiffened. Daniel's car wasn't back yet. Good. I understand, I said. May I see the document? He handed it over. A simple form, black text, clear instructions, no ambiguity. Name of primary deeded homeowner. Names of extended stay occupants. Duration of stay. Approval signature of homeowner. Melissa appeared beside me like a shadow. Is that really necessary? Leo nodded. We require all non-owners living in the home for more than 7 days to be listed. It's standard procedure. She swallowed. But Daniel said. Daniel is not the homeowner, Leo interrupted politely. Only the deeded homeowner can sign. I watched Melissa's confidence deflate, molecule by molecule. I'll take care of it, I told him. Thank you. When I closed the door, Melissa's desperation burst out. This is ridiculous, she snapped. We just need a little more time. You've had a week, I said smoothly. And you've unpacked enough to start charging rent. That's unfair. What's unfair, I countered, is you assuming you can live indefinitely in a home you did not buy, were not invited into, and have made no effort to respect. She blinked. Daniel invited us. And Daniel, I said calmly, does not own this home. Her breath hitched in her throat. Good. She tried another angle. Jacob needs stability. I agree, I said. That's why this house is not an option. Stability requires structure. Boundaries. Respect. None of which has been shown here. She stared at me, eyes thinning. I think you're trying to punish us. No, I said with precise clarity. I'm enforcing the rules that you ignored. She took a step closer. Daniel will never side with you on this. I smiled softly. He won't need to. Melissa frowned. What does that mean? But I didn't answer. Instead, I went to the kitchen table, pulled out a pen, and signed the form. Under names of extended stay occupants, I wrote. Melissa Hargrove. Jacob Hargrove. Under duration authorized, I wrote. 7 days, already fulfilled. No extension granted. Under signature, I wrote. Claire Reynolds, sole deeded homeowner. Melissa gasped. You can't. But I slid the form into the return envelope and walked it straight to the outgoing mailbox by the curb. When I re-entered the house, Melissa was pacing, frantic. This is going to break Daniel, she stammered. He wants us here. I met her gaze, steady and level. No, I said. He wants to feel needed. But this house, it's not his emotional safety net. And I am not his collateral damage. She stared at me with wide, bewildered eyes. For the first time since she arrived, I saw it, the realization. I wasn't playing her game. I was running the board. And the next move would checkmate them both. Daniel came home earlier than usual that evening, face tight, steps urgent, jaw clenched in a way that told me Melissa had already called him the second I dropped the envelope in the mailbox. He barely shut the door before launching into it. What did you do? He demanded. Melissa is freaking out. I looked up from the dining table where I was organizing contract folders for work. Be specific. You signed some HOA form without talking to me. I didn't need to talk to you, I replied. It concerns occupancy rights, and I'm the only one with legal authority. He ran his hands through his hair. Claire, you're being impossible. They're just trying to survive. They're trying to settle, I corrected. There's a difference. Melissa stepped into view from the hallway, eyes red, voice trembling with practiced fragility. Daniel, I don't feel safe here anymore. She's trying to push us out before we've even found a place to go. Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The gesture wasn't romantic, but it was intimate. Comfortable. Too practiced. I watched quietly, storing the image like evidence. She's not being reasonable, Melissa continued. I can't keep uprooting Jacob. He needs somewhere consistent. Daniel, you promised. Stop, I said sharply. This is not his promise to make. Melissa flinched. Daniel glared. You're heartless. No, I said. I am awake. Emotion flickered across his face, anger, shame, confusion, before settling into stubborn defensiveness. Where's Jacob? I asked. In the guest room, Melissa said, voice rising. He's upset. He's 10, I replied. He's resilient. What he isn't is responsible for this situation. Melissa's lips quivered like she wanted to cry. Daniel immediately shot me a look of disgust, as if I'd kicked a puppy. He still didn't get it. But he would. Carefully, deliberately, I stood and opened one of my contract folders. Daniel, I said softly, you've made it clear you don't respect my boundaries, my decisions, or my home. But before I take the next step, I want you to see something. He frowned. See what? I placed a single sheet of paper in front of him. A time-stamped text transcript. From his phone. Automatically backed up to our shared family cloud account. He stared at it. Then his face drained of color. The text was unmistakable. Daniel, Melissa, once Claire buys the house, you and Jacob can move in. She'll adjust. She always does. The timestamp was from 3 weeks before closing. 3 weeks. Before the house was even mine. Melissa turned ghost white. Daniel, you didn't tell me she'd see that. He stammered. I didn't think it would matter. It matters, I said, my voice calm, cold, steady. Because it proves this wasn't compassion. It was a plan. Daniel opened his mouth. Then closed it. Then opened it again like a malfunctioning machine. You went through my phone, he whispered. No, I said. You synced your messages to the shared cloud. Automatically. You exposed yourself. Melissa pressed a hand to her forehead. Daniel, why would you? He whirled on her. You wanted this too. And you promised it, she shot back. You said she wouldn't fight it. He turned back to me, eyes desperate. Claire, it's not what it looks like. It looks, I cut in, like you two used me. Silence punched through the room like a physical force. He tried again, voice cracking. I was trying to help them. I thought you'd understand. You didn't ask me, I said. Because you never intended to. He inhaled shakily. You've changed. No, I said. I finally stopped making myself small. He said nothing. So I continued. The HOA compliance process is already underway. They know Melissa and Jacob have exceeded permitted occupancy without approval. There will be a formal notice within 48 hours. Melissa gasped. You can't do this. I can, I said. I already did. Daniel stepped closer. Please think about Jacob. He's innocent. And he'll be fine once he's living in a home where adults handle responsibilities ethically. Melissa whimpered, shrinking behind Daniel. Then I said the sentence that sealed everything. You have 2 choices. Both legal. Both documented. Daniel swallowed hard. What choices? 1, I said, raising a finger, Melissa and Jacob leave voluntarily before the HOA notice becomes public record. His face collapsed. Or two. I raised a second finger. You move out with them. The world went still. What? He whispered. You heard me. You would kick your own husband out? I'm not kicking you out, I said. I'm offering you the chance to stand with the family you've chosen. He said nothing. Melissa stared at him with wide, terror-filled eyes, because she suddenly realized Daniel might actually choose her, and that she didn't want him if it meant losing the free ride. I watched them both unravel. And then I delivered the final, quiet blow. I bought this house for us. But if you want to build a life with her. I nodded toward Melissa. Then do it. Just not here. Daniel looked at Melissa. Then at me. Back at Melissa. Back at me. For the first time, he looked lost. Utterly, devastatingly lost. I need time to think, he whispered. You have until tomorrow, I said. Before the notice goes live. Melissa grabbed his sleeve. Daniel, don't leave me hanging. But he pulled away, retreating into the hallway like a man fleeing a battlefield. Melissa watched him go. Her lips trembled. Her hands shook. Then, finally, she looked at me. You're going to destroy him. No, I said, turning back to my documents. I'm going to free myself. And for the first time since this mess began, I felt it. The shift of power returning exactly where it belonged. A simple word. A heavy cost. I don't know yet, I said truthfully. But I do know this, things will not return to how they were. Not ever. He lowered his head. I'll do whatever you need. Then start by respecting my home, I said. And yourself. He nodded, tears sliding down quietly, genuine this time. I stood. The HOA notice arrives tomorrow. If Melissa tries to challenge anything, it won't go far. The documentation is airtight. He nodded again, absorbing the reality of consequences he created. As I walked toward my office, I paused, touching the chipped mug on the table. A reminder. A symbol. Imperfection, but enduring. Cracked, but functional. Resilient. Just like me. Just like the boundaries I rebuilt. Behind me, Daniel whispered, "Thank you, for not throwing me out." I didn't turn around. I didn't keep you, I said. You stayed. And with that, I closed my office door, my home finally quiet, finally mine again, knowing that the justice delivered wasn't loud, wasn't cruel, wasn't vindictive. It was simply earned.